So Skyrim, a game about dragons, magic, and chickens. But hidden behind the magic and wizardry is the most lethal weapon known to man, the wooden sword. With a staggering damage of 2, I know, how did Bethesda let this slide in the boardroom? But no, in all seriousness, the wooden sword sucks. So the rules are, base wooden sword only, no potions to add an effect onto it or soul gems to enchant it, just your bog standard pointy stick. Shouts can be used if necessary to progress in the story. Any armor is allowed, but no shields. So get familiar with the combo of restoration and a sharp stick. With all that said and done, let's get into the challenge of can you beat Skyrim with only the wooden sword. Before we start, I want to say a big thank you to Patt for the amazing thumbnail art. Go check out their socials and channel, link in the description. I woke up to one of the most iconic intros of all time.
Hey, you. Finally awake.
We picked an orc for Berserker Rage and to get easy access into the Ebony Mines. And because an orc with the name Sock amused us. We watched as a dude lost his head, and Aldwin attacked and freed us. Noted. If you're in any bother with the police, just have a dragon attack and they'll drop all charges. I ran away and followed Ralof into Helgen's Keep, where I didn't have a wooden sword, so I just watched as he took the Imperials single-handedly. But I was there for the moral support. Looted as much as my pockets could carry from the rest of the Imperials. Escaping, we headed down to Riverwood, where I said hi to Chad the Chicken, and talked to Lucan to get our hands on the wooden sword. Yes, I know I probably could have just picked one up from somewhere, but just keep in mind it's been 5 years since I've played this game. Other than the main story, I really can't remember anything. So, please don't yell at me in the comments. Talking to Gerda, she told me to inform the Jarl of Whiterun about the dragons. Travelling over into Whiterun, I witnessed a robbery go down between 2 children. I'm sure she's going to make a great Khajiit someday. I talked to the Jarl about the flying lizard problem and he instructed me to have a chat with the wizard friend. I talked to him and he told me to go retrieve a dragon stone at Bleak Falls Barrow. And there it was where I first put the sword to work. You know, it's not too bad. I could work with this. However, I don't know if my humor's just messed up, but there's something mildly amusing about poking a blunt twig through a man's chest. I made my way through, taking down the bandits and being met with our first mini-boss being the wounded frostbite spider. And welcome to the strategy of getting a few hits in and retreating to heal. This takes a while, but it works. Cutting down Arvel, he tried to take off, emphasis on tried, after retrieving the golden claw, and like for many ruins and dungeons that I'm going to go through, when I get surrounded by a ton of enemies, I will just run past them, and leaving it to future me to deal with. Reaching the final room, I learned my first part of Unrelenting Force, and I can already tell the Drog is going to be a piece of... uh-oh. Healing and running around a chest and hitting him when I could, he eventually went down and the dragon stone was mine. Returning back to Whiterun, I give the stone to the mage and was sent straight back out to deal with our first flying lizard problem. I'm not gonna lie, if it wasn't for the Whiterun guards shooting it with arrows, it would have taken way longer. When the dragon landed, I just poked it a couple of times and then it eventually died. And in front of everyone, I did a little dance and absorbed the soul. The guards confronted me and said I may be something called Dragonborn. Well, I wouldn't be the main character. And that I should look into it more. Talking to the blacksmith in Whiterun, I purchased a full set of steel armor and just look at us, don't I look snazzy? But the steel armor isn't gonna cut it for much longer. So it was off to the gloombound mind and depleted of ebony ore to craft the armor. And that should have me sword for the rest of the game, but little did I know I severely underestimated the time and effort to get 80 smithing. Because even after getting as much iron ore as I could from the halted stream camp and using alteration to turn them into gold rings, I still only got to smithing level 30. So ultimately I gave up on this and started heading towards the Greybeards. I stole and attempted to scale the mountain with a horse, but the horse wasn't very supportive of that decision. Well, I'm stuck now. At least I'm not dead. After I found a way up the mountain, I spoke to the Greybeards in the nursing home where they made me practice shouting and showed me the dash power that they're going to use to escape the home. Showing off my Dragonborn skills, I needed to go retrieve a horn. But just outside the place, I discovered one of the worst enemies to fight in this challenge, the Necromancers. Because not only does the magic hurt, they can summon a ton of people to shield them and fight for them. And this challenge and a group of enemies don't mix very well. Inside, I watched as a perfectly timed arrow seemed to appear out of nowhere and assassinate an enemy. And running through the endless amount of Draugrs, I got stuck on a puzzle for way longer than I should have. I reached a room where I had a realization while grilling myself. So my sword can't do a lot of damage, but traps can. Although I can't use it as a common way of dealing with enemies, I can always keep it in mind. Turning the spiders into ash, I grabbed the horn and... wait, what's this? I need to speak with you urgently. Rent an attic room at the sleeping... What? Why didn't you just come and see us instead of making me come down here and suffer? Fine, let me just call a new bit of Riverwood. Back in Riverwood, I got confronted by some cultists, but I'll leave that problem for the residents. Talking to Delphine inside of the Sleeping Giant Inn, she gave me the horn and informed me about the blades and how they're seeking out the Dragonborn. So, to prove myself, I must take down a dragon and absorb its soul. Before I embarked on my quest, I decided to do a little shopping and trading, and because I gave him the golden claw, which let me take most things in the shop, and it was stupid not to capitalize on this, I may have stolen something that I wasn't allowed, and Lucan got a little heated. so I just ran away to the nursing home, gave back the horn and made my way to the burial site. But on the way there, I received a letter from a courier. Oh, I wonder what this is. In the name of Yol Balgrove, blah blah blah, Lucan, Valerian's dead, blah, 100 gold pieces? And who said crime doesn't pay? But at the burial site, Aldwin showed up and said something in Dragon Tongue, and then summoned a bony boy to attack us. So with the help of Delphine and 10 minutes of prodding it with a twig later, the dragon went down and I absorbed a soul. So what about now? Delphine, does that prove I'm Dragonborn? Speaking of Delphine again in the Giant's Inn, she wanted me to infiltrate the Thalmor embassy to find out if they knew anything about the dragons coming back. Giving Malbon the necessities, aka the sword, the armor, and a wheel of cheese for good luck. We snuck into the embassy by showing my totally legitimate invitation. Talked to Malbon where he said I'd need to make a distraction to get things kicked off. So what's better to cause a distraction than messing with a self-entitled twat? Once everything started kicking off, I snuck around back and donned on my armor and sword. And got to work with the most painful task, trying to kill all of the Thalmor. See, it wouldn't be as bad if it was just swords and arrows, but they have armor and magic. And let me tell you, shock magic is painful. It does a lot of damage, and also drains my magicka, which means without magicka, I can't heal. But I'll not bore you with the 5 minutes, and instead just show you a compilation of deaths to give you a rough idea of how much pain I put myself through. Yeah, so constant suffering for about an hour was so much fun, but this doesn't even compare to what comes later down the line. Escaping the embassy, having learned absolutely nothing, I returned to Delphine to tell her that the Thalmor had no involvement. And then she told me to go rescue some old dude from the underground of Riften. So at Whiterun, I used Uber Medieval Edition to get to Riften, where the gods tried to rob me, and I politely told them to kiss me ass. Because personally, I don't feel like getting robbed today. And they just led us through. Entering the Ratway, I stormed through. I said I stormed through to Espen, rescued him, and we made our escape, killing the Thalmor on the way out. Reuniting Delphine and Espen, we went to the Karthspire to read Alduin's Wall, where I used the most thought-out logic to solve a puzzle, and that's to keep trying different combinations till I get it right. Lowering the bridge and passing over it, we were met with yet another puzzle. God, Skyrim sure does love its dungeons and puzzles. But this one, I couldn't just wing it, because if I did... So pulling the chain and reading Alduin's Wall, it was back up to the Greybeard so I can meet Parthenax. Making my way up the mountain to the throat of the world, I ran past the Ice Wraiths and met Parthenax. Talking to him, he wanted me to demonstrate my powers by launching a fireball at his face, so that's exactly what I did. Well, wrap it up, challenge over. No, you can't beat Skyrim with only a wooden sword, if only it was that easy. No, there is plenty of more suffering to come. After getting told I need to find an Elder Scroll, I first had to find out how to find one. So it was off to the College of Winterhold, where I wasn't allowed past the gates if I didn't prove I was Dragonborn. I'm sick of people wanting us to prove this. Fine, I'll shout one time. Now look what you've done. In the college, I talked to this orc to ask if he has any books on Elder Scrolls, which he did, so I quickly give them a flick through and found out where one is. Well, where someone who knew where one is. So I dove off the college and landed a 10-point dive and swam to the place where he was. Had a quick chat with him. Then I decided before I go back splunking in the Dwemer ruins, I'll upgrade my armor to Dwarven. Maybe it'll work like a disguise and they won't attack us. After crafting a set of Dwarven armor, I was ready to go and get that Elder Scroll. Or so I thought. You see, on my way there, I got assaulted by a saber cat, and he swiftly put an end to my life. But by sneaking past, aka running as fast as my legs could carry us, I reached the ruin. And to answer my own question, no, it doesn't work as a disguise. What I think this was, New Vegas. But a couple of dwarven spiders wasn't anything too difficult to deal with. Now, but the spheres, they were an issue. But using my knowledge I gathered this run, I just used traps to get rid of them. Now the Falmer. They are no joke. There's a lot, and I mean a lot of them. So the best course of action was to not attempt to kill any of them, and maybe use them to my advantage to deal with some future enemies. So what better enemy to test these little guys on than a Dwarven Centurion, which surprisingly they made a quick work with. Dashing through this cool looking room, we got to the Elder Scroll, where after I mashed a ton of buttons, it was finally mine. Using the Elder Scroll at the throat of the world, we learned how to use Dragon Rend, and how Alduin was banished the first time using the Dragon Scroll. Promptly after exiting the scroll, it was time for our first fight with the big lizard. And my god, this took ages. Let me just put a timer on screen for you. I'm not gonna lie to you, this took so long. 22 minutes to be exact. But it felt way longer. But the worst part is, what if I told you this was an 1/8 of my longest fight in this run? But you're gonna have to wait to see that. With Alduin banished to Sovngarde, I needed a way to defeat him once and for all. The Greybeards told me to use Dragon's Reach to hold one of the dragons. So I asked the Jarl, and he told me, no way. He could not let a dragon inside of Whiterun as long as the war was going on. So I'd donned my best suit, put on some Spider-Man cologne, and headed out to convince the Stormcloaks and the Imperials to stop fighting while we deal with the dragon situation. After convincing Tullius and Ulfric to have a civilized meeting and come to some sort of terms, we resolved the conflict briefly. With that out of the way, we could use Dragon's Reach to capture a dragon. And use said dragon to get to a place where I could reach Sovngarde. After capturing the dragon, I must have had some of that Spider-Man cologne on us, because it was way too easy to convince him to take me there. But we settled up and left. And one final sprint left to go. And this, I'm glad, was the last, because although it was only Draugrs, there were too many of them to handle. And I'm not gonna lie, for most of the puzzles, I had to look them up on the wiki page to figure out how to pass them. Back outside, we confronted the Dragon Priest, and don't ask me why he already had half health. Honestly, I'm just grateful he did, because this fight would have went from 2.5 hours to probably close to 6. And I know what you're thinking. 2.5 hours to kill one enemy is a bit insane. But after dying to dragons more times than I could count, I realized I'm gonna have to develop an entire strategy to deal with the Dragon Priest. So I learned that going back into the interior, the priest can't actually follow you in there unless he's right against the door. So I had to keep poking my head out, get 1 to 3 hits in, and then retreat to heal and keep reusing this till he eventually fell. So after the most excruciating pain in 2.5 hours of my life, I entered Sovngarde. And to pass this bridge, this big guy said I had to challenge him and beat him. So I played this as ambitiously and bravely as I could. I could get hits in, and if he swings, run. Eventually, I whittled down his health enough to the point where he either got bored or he was scared of getting any more splinters. But he let me past, and after telling the original 3 that killed Alduin that he's returned back to Sovngarde, we headed out to kill him. Clearing the skies, he finally showed himself, and with the help, he went down way easier the second time. And that answers the question. You can beat Skyrim with a wooden sword. Well, kinda.